Tonight's presentation is Stories in Stone, Historic Gravestones at the Mountain View Cemetery. About the presentation, the old southeast corner of Mountain View Cemetery is located within Shrewsbury's historic district and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Join us as we share rare archival photographs from the Farber collection of the oldest gravestones at Mountain View, dating back to the early 1700s, and hear the stories about their symbolism, carvers' importance as a historical resource that documents the life stories of residents from our past. About the presenters, Linda Davis and Martha Thomas, both lifelong residents of Shrewsbury, currently serve on the executive board of the Shrewsbury Historical Society. Linda is the curator and Martha is a director. They both also serve on the Historical Commission. Martha is a ninth generation of the Hapgood family, was a member of the Historic District Commission also. Linda and Martha share a long-time interest in preserving the historic gravestones at Mountain View Cemetery. Ladies.
I'm Linda, this is Martha, just in case. We're really excited to have everybody here tonight. This is a project that's very near and dear to our hearts. It is the history of the town. These are your founding families, the people who made your town what it is today. I mean, I know sometimes it's difficult to hang on to historic homes and stuff like that because progress moves on. But the cemetery is the cemetery, and it's always going to be the cemetery. And I feel that hopefully we will give you some of the history of some of the earlier people and a little bit about the stones themselves. Like you can kind of date stones by the material they're made from, by the symbolism that's on them. And it's a historical place. It's not a scary place. You know, we should know. We were out there all the time. So yeah, no one's got us yet. So yeah.
It is a outdoor museum about the history of our town.
Yeah, definitely. It's what they call living history as far as I'm concerned. Back around 1717, people started requesting and recruiting people to make this a town. And we had stipulations to incorporate the town. It meant that we had to have something like 40 families. We had to have a meeting house, which is where the Congregational Church is, but of course it did not look like that back then. We had to have a pound, we had to have a whipping post or stocks. We had to have various items that were schoolhouse, which took forever to get going, and we had to have a burying ground. And so this is the section that we'll be talking about, which is our most historic section. Our earliest grave is 1733, and that's only shortly after the town was actually incorporated. All the wards are out here. They have a large monument. So basically, we want to give you information on how important the cemetery is, and that there's lots of stones that have been broken or tipped over and whatever, and it's a family's loss. And I mean, you know, a family from 1733 can't come back and fix their stones. So I think that, you know, we're just trying to make you understand the importance of what we have out there and how important it is to keep it maintained and give you the opportunity to understand that you can walk through there anytime, and hopefully we'll give you enough information tonight so that you can walk out and go, oh, that's a 1700 stone. Oh, that's an 1840 stone. And I guess
That's it.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a little background about Daniel Farber.
Let me get the folders. Yeah, these pictures here, you can come up and look at them afterwards. And these pictures in these folders are very special. These are some of our oldest stones, some of our most precious stones, and they were all photographed in 83?
No, some of them were from the from 1975, and then again in 82, and then
So you go ahead and talk about Daniel. So we have this amazing collection because of interaction between Daniel and Martha. And back in the 90s, there was actually a group that was going through and trying to write some of the stones. They were cataloging stones, cataloging dates
yes,
and epitaphs and whatnot.
everything that was on the gravestone we cataloged. We transcribed onto paper, so there'd be a record of what was standing at the time.
At the time,
in
yeah.
'92.
So Daniel did a lot. So we'll give you a little information about Daniel because without his work, some of these stones have been lost.
Yep.
So without his work, we would maybe not ever know what that stone looked like.
Daniel Faber was born in 1906 and he died in 1998. And Mr. Faber was of immigrant parents. They came from Poland before the turn of the century with two brothers. Daniel was born in Worcester. The Fabers owned a shoe company that made inner soles. So the father, the mother, and the three sons all worked for the business. And Daniel had an avocation of photography, which he started when he was about 18, 19 years old. He wanted to take pictures of nature, and with that taking the pictures of nature kind of drew him into a cemetery where he discovered gravestones, old ones, and it was in Paxton. So that's how he became interested in what he did. Mr. Faber's work has been exhibited at the Antiquarian Society, the Smithsonian, Museum of Fine Arts, Yale University. He was also involved in Worcester, very prominent civic leader in Worcester. And in 1968, Worcester decided to make a reflecting pool behind City Hall. And in the process of doing that, they recalled, or someone found, that there had been a previous cemetery there. So Mr. Faber and a group of other men proceeded to unearth these gravestones that had all been buried flat, taken down, buried flat, to they were in the way of the common area. So they got all the stones up, and any bodies or any parts of bodies they could find, and they were reinterred at Hope Cemetery. And all the gravestones are all upright due to this man and colleagues. He also started a group called the Association for Graveyard Studies, which is quite well known throughout the country for people who are interested in gravestone studies. Also, Mr. Faber took photographs of gravestones from Nova Scotia down the East Coast, down as far as South Carolina, because the carvers would ship gravestones out of the port of Boston up and down the East Coast. That's why there's so big an area. And that's he's donated land. He was quite a philanthropist here in the city. So we're going to start showing you some of the photographs that he took of these gravestones, and we'll be able to point out some of the symbolism, the motifs, who the carvers were, who the people were. This, could you just back up one? This is Mr. Faber's own gravestone. It's in Rural Cemetery, and it's, if you can read it, it says, if I can read it, nature was his God, kindness his way, and photography his art. So this is on one side of the gravestone with a camera, and here it has his name, date, his wives. Okay.
And most of these, all these pictures that we have in these are very valuable pictures. And we have had L.B. Wheaton, they made copies for us. It took Chris and I 100 years to get it done, but we do have absolutely a whole nother set of these that can be made available for people to do research and stuff with. These albums are the originals. These are Shrewsbury stones because he has them in the Antiquarian Society and stuff like that, but our collection is our stones. Yeah.
Where's Rural Cemetery?
Rural Cemetery's off Grove Street, down near the fire station on Grove in Worcester.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
What we're talking about tonight, Mr. Faber's photos, are just of Shrewsbury things. We can go on to the next one. So these are a list of some of the carvers that carved gravestones that are standing over here in our cemetery. This right here is a signature on one of the gravestones. Very few of gravestones had carvers were signed. And that's one that says J. New. So we can go with it.
Now, all of these pictures you're seeing are what's in this collection. And we want you to pay attention. I mean, she's going to point out some things, and then I can swap off with her if she gets sick of doing it. But it's the symbolism, and like the older stones like from dating around early 1800s backwards, are all slate. And there was all different kinds of slate, as you'll see.
Yep.
Some of these still look like they were done yesterday instead of, 17 something. And the symbolism is what really makes them what I think most people consider gravestones as folk art. It's New England folk art. And you'll see the same sort of symbol, but depending on which carver, did the design, will depend a little bit on how it reflects as to how his.
Each carver has its own way.
Yeah, they had their own way of doing their art.
So this is called a winged cherub. This is the cherub and the wings of the cherub. This stone is rather plain. We don't have too many really fancy stones, but
it's a beautiful stone.
Right, and they're all carved. And sometimes what the carvers would do would be, one carver would carve the tympan and then down the sides and the shoulders. And now somebody else would do the lettering, or the carver might do the whole thing. So, this is another winged cherub, same thing. But as to the carver, it's a little different than the other ones.
See, the wings come out
Yeah.
differently because that was his perspective of how he wanted to present his art. So they're similar in what their meanings are, but they all have a different, unique.
So this gravestone, it's got a little different thing. This is a later one towards the, the patient. The person died in 1831. So anytime after 1790, we see this change in the gravestones, where there be an urn and a weeping willow. So the urn stands for death, and the willow is for grief.
This one's really cool.
This is the stone of Henry Baldwin. And
Henry's down here.
we've got pictures of Henry's gravestone.
Not only was the stone damaged, as you can see, with things going across them, but this stone, this is the one that broke, right?
This is the one.
Someone evidently threw something out of a car going down 140 because he was right next to the wall, and it completely fractured his stone.
It just blew the stone out because he's right next to the stone wall.
So we have the pieces in a container upstairs in the museum, but Faber also did these and gave these to us. So this is a photograph,
Yep.
pretty much like what you're looking at. This is the photograph he did of the stone. And then this is what it looked like after it had been fractured. You guys can come up and look at any of these afterwards. But it had been, it just like snapped, it just like a bomb. And so he also did this, so he put the little photograph, and here's the little face from the little piece that he was able to save of this particular stone. He's cute. I think he's cute.
And this is Abigail Baldwin, Henry's wife. So you can just, and another cherub.
And you'll notice too, if it's like family, like several stones within a family,
Yeah.
most cases it was the same carver.
Yeah.
So you'll see a very familiar design because, well, let's see, we had wives and husbands.
This wife.
You know, they were, like I say, they were from the same carver.
Right.
but
There were
yet-
several Henry Baldwins. They like to use the same name on the way down the line. You know, after say Captain Henry Baldwin, Henry Baldwin the son. So
They would do this with their children too. If they lost a child, say they named the child Henry and they lost the child shortly afterwards, they would have another child and name it Henry. So they carried the names through, and it.
now this is 1830. Well, this was what did it say? 1835. When they've changed completely now to marble stones and no decoration on them at all. And the marble stones, you'll see some over there that are bright white that have been cleaned. They just don't stand the test of time very well. They start to what they call sugar. And instead of being nice and smooth, it feels like coarse sugar in your hand. And a lot of moss and lichen is just on it. And it can be washed off. These are just, there's no real significance to this kind of decoration. It's just a decoration. No specific meaning to it.
Look at that face.
This up here is called the umbrella, or it represents heaven. So sometimes they're just very simple, not too much meaning. Because we have to remember that in the 1700s, these gravestones were very expensive. They cost £1 or £3 or £5, which in that time, which could be somebody's yearly income. So that's why there's a lot of blank space up in the cemetery where there are probably a lot of burials, but no one could afford a gravestone.
This one had too much to drink.
This one had too much to drink. And right here, on it says 38. That's £3, 8 shillings.
Yes, if you can get down deep enough, you can get carvers' initials, names, prices.
Quarry
Problem
mark.
is that is an underground section.
Right. Because usually when the gravestone, this much above the ground, there's maybe 2/3 below the ground. As you can see, like with this gravestone and the one over there, how much is below ground. This is another, just a plain urn and willow.
Oh, I love these.
Okay, so I gotta remember who this one is.
That's the guy you said was from Scotland.
Yeah, it's a Worcester.
Yeah, that's right. W-O-R-S-T.
Yeah, W-O-I-C-E-S-T-R.
He came from Scotland. So look at his cabin.
background
It's
was-
completely different.
Yeah, his background was English Scotch. His family,
Kinda like
and they're
this.
very geometric, all the things. And if you looked at one's gravestones from England and Scotland, you see the same kind of work. This is John Crosby. So this is called the winged death. With the skeleton head and the wings, and then these little floral like things, and then scroll work down the sides. Flowers on a gravestone represent the frailty of life. This is one of the Cushing's gravestones. Job Cushing was our first minister here at the Congregational Church. And Bridget, I don't remember how they're related.
Was it his daughter?
No,
Sister?
I
We
think
looked at it today.
Son, I can't remember. But it says, Memento Mori on the top. Remember, you too shall die. That's it.
And there's not many of the stones out there that have that kind.
No.
These are.
There's only two
I mean,
or
the
three.
whole stone of the Cushings is completely kind of different, but that's one of the few stones we have found that has. I mean, some of them have epitaphs, but that's about the only one we have found that the carver put that into.
So this stone was carved by Daniel Hastings, and he was out of Newton. So here's another Cushing stone, and the time frame has changed. So now we're at urn and willow again, and just a geometric. The same with this Colonel Job Cushing, not the father. It's the time frame. And this is Reverend Cushing's stone. So there's a story about all this. When I was involved with the restoration group, we worked on the cemetery. I tried to catalog a good deal of the gravestones. And one of the things we did, because there's such an empty space of gravestones, we would go out and prod the ground to see if we could find any stones below ground. And what happened was, my son and I found that gravestone. That's the original gravestone of Reverend Cushing. This is a replacement. So when his wife died, Reverend Cushing died in 1760. His wife died in 1798. So we think the family, and Mr. Faber thought so too, that the family must have said, we want Mom and Dad's gravestone to look alike. There was big difference in this slate, in this metamorphic stone here. So they put two matching stones, buried this stone. That was buried for 200 years, and we've taken it in to preserve it. They knew this stone existed. It was a probate from 1760. And they looked and looked, did it get broken? What happened? And we happened to find it. And this is the other gravestone. This is the Cushing twins. That they have the death heads on them. They died of that distemper, throat distemper. I'm not exactly sure what throat distemper is.
I think when I looked it up one time, it was like a diphtheria or something on that idea. If you get tired of talking, let me know. I'll take over for you.
I'm trying to. I know the death heads on those Cushing stones are out of Boston. This is this is another one with a willow and urn. Just another plain. So these are the gravestones. There's a couple of them from the Drury family, and they apparently someone in the family or someone they knew got a field stone and did their own carving of this family.
And they're tiny, they're
Yeah,
only
they're not
about
big.
yay
They're-
big. If you need a break, let me know.
Yeah. And then here's another memento mori. And these do you want to?
The two children?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about
Sure, I'll do
her stone?
This stone here is, for me anyways, it's one of our most special stones. You and your pointer. This stone is, if you go through the gateway here at the back entry of the church and you go straight down what would have been the old road, this stone stands right there. It is an amazing stone. He was a mason, obviously. You can see 3 different mason symbols. This stone is unusual in the sense that, first of all, it's huge. And secondly, the symbolism on this is completely different from most any of the stones we have out in the cemetery. Up in the top, you can see the all-seeing eye, which reflects his mason background. You have the sun, which is birth, and the moon, which is death. You have a coffin. You have what we believe is an olive branch, a trowel, and then you've got the pillars on this. The pillars were,
The entrance to heaven.
yes, you see them on some of them, but like I say, this stone probably stands this tall, and it is a beautiful piece of slate, and it's done its time. It has had a lot of damage done to the bottom with people going by and things getting dragged or whatever, but it's a whole family stone really, and his epitaph says what it says here: "Weep for us, dry up your tears." Weep not for us, I mean. So, and that is our celebrity stone, which we need to protect amazingly. And here's our friend Mr. Sun and Mr. Moon. And then we've got, this is, let me know if you see that one with the strange flint. I'm sure you're already picking up a trend here. You can kind of already pick up that, when you start seeing the marble ones, you've gone beyond like late 1700s, early 1800s. So this is Dr. Edward Flint. And what carver was this one?
That's a Soul family.
Right. I know you told me that. Now notice, like, these wings are completely different from other wings. His wings have more feathers in them, and I love the hair on this one. He's got the great, like, Farrah Fawcett look, And, but he also, you'll notice the vines up the side and the flowers. And this is Edward Flint Jr. He's got the umbrella. And his wings are different, and the vine comes right into him on this one. These are really, okay, here's the stone.
Okay. So this stone is from, his name is William Young. He's called the Thistle Carver from Tatnick. And the stone that he used was quarried here in Worcester, and it's called schist. It's crummy. It, you know, he had a hard time working with it. Even though on this stone you don't see the thistles, he was known for carving thistles onto a lot of his gravestones. So,
Thistle
and
carvers.
this only stands about this high.
And he's got a schnoz.
He's got a schnoz.
Schnoz. But you can tell that this one's like completely, maybe not from the most elegant carving factory, because you can see that the lines are a little more, plus the stone was, like she said, was garbage. So it made it much harder to,
So, these stones next, the Goddards and many other ones we have, are carved by one carver. His name was James New. He had a shop in Grafton. And James New
Interesting.
gave us a lot of, thank you, a lot of gravestones. And they're all in the same thing. The canopy of heaven, the slanty eyes on the cherub face. And James New stones way up into almost to the border of New Hampshire. There's a lot in Grafton. And here's another one of Jonathan Worcester
very Celtic looking.
with this. This is Edward Goddard, and I believe he's, I don't remember who carved him, but sometimes they would make portrait stones, a face of a person. This is not a true, though it looks like a portrait stone, it's not a true portrait stone. And
But you notice it's missing the wings, so that leads it into a little,
So,
little
this
bit
is-
different look.
This is a James New stone, and here again is New, James New. His signature's on that stone. There's another geometrical. This is a very tall stone, and it's carved by James New. But again, you see the canopy of heaven, and and again. Same family, the Goddard family, the willow and urns. Same. And
Like I say, it's easy when you're
Yeah.
walking around. Once you start finding willows and urns, you know that you've
You've
gone
gone.
into the early 1800s. You still may see slate because the marble hadn't come around
And-
yet, but the slate, the design symbolism changed.
there's an,
Look at that.
and some of them have, cute little mouths and eyes and.
So you see the
See-
stone is still slate, but it's reaching
Yeah.
into the new symbolism.
So
That's another one of those.
This is a Moses. This is Moses Hastings, and the same shisty stone,
City
and
thing.
then. But this stuff here you see on here, it's lichen, and some of the lichens you can just
Yeah, we can
push
get
right
some of it
off.
off by rubbing it, but then there's that other one that's like really flat on the stones and it likes the slate.
Yeah.
And even scrubbing it with like a little light brush or something, it won't move. So
Sometimes even when you're looking at the graves, the writing on the gravestone, you'll see that somewhere over here on the side, on the border, they've tried to squish in a word. And like I had said before, sometimes the printing on the inside was not done by the carver who did that. And they could go to a shop and pick out a stone that was already pre-carved and have them write on it, print. And
that's one got a lovely umbrella.
some of them are stippled like stippling like this kind of in them. And more urns and more willows. And again, you can, when you see some of the stones, you know immediately this is another Sewell family. Sewell family was carvers were from what they call the Narragansett Basin carvers. They all came from Rentham, Rehoboth, all down there. And their stones would disperse out. And this guy got nothing on his, just plain. And this one, I have to look at my list. Because you can't remember them all.
We try.
Yeah. But
This one here you'll notice too has the fancier wings. And this one's got curly hair.
Esther Howe, that's another Sewell family one too. The Sewell family had there were many carvers in the family. And this is a Sewell family.
Now you notice this one here has been repaired way back in the past. This whole thing has been cracked off.
So it's held on with like an iron bar to the crack. It's held together.
Look at that face.
This is my favorite gravestone. It's
See, we all have our favorites.
Hannah-eyed. Hannah-eyed, and she's just a pretty girl. She was a young woman who died here in Shrewsbury, about 23 years old, and she was from Hingham or down that way. And her husband Simon, after she died, he left Shrewsbury, and I don't know anything more about her death, but it's a pretty stone and it stands all by itself up in the corner. And this is another one of a young child, and so with the death head on it, winged death head, excuse me. And another willow.
Yeah, more pillars, and that's the killer cameo thing going on there.
So Mary Jones, she died when she was 105.
Wow.
And Mary Jones, was it Reverend Sumner?
Yes.
Reverend Sumner took her for a sleigh ride on her birthday. And Mary Jones was related to the Baldwins. She was a Baldwin. And after her husband, one of the Henry Baldwins, died, she remarried this fellow Jones, Colonel Jones. And I don't know where he was, but more.
These are the
willows.
Kais. They were some of the first founding family area in the area because it was the Kais also. You know, when you see Cyprian Keys, people call it Cyprian Keys. It's the same family. It's Kais. Because Shrewsbury and Boylston, they were one precinct at that time.
Okay.
Look at the little baby willows on this one.
Yeah, two of them. So this is another kind of sad thing. So this is Solomon Nealon. Solomon Nealon, if you've ever heard of Nealon Street in Boston, he is one of the Boston Nealons. Some of the Nealons were in the printing business. This Solomon Nealon was a leather dresser. And he came to Shrewsbury, came out of Boston, came to Shrewsbury when things were getting tight with the British in Boston. He wanted away. He was an older man, and so he came to Shrewsbury to live with his daughter. And he eventually died before the Revolutionary War started. But he came here to get away from that. And his gravestone has, some marks on it, and it's had a rough life. And then it was recently found. Not recently, but several years down and broken. It's all in pieces.
It's out there, but
Yeah, it's out. The pieces are out there in the ground. This is just another. Okay, Abraham Knowlton. I'm sorry, I have to go back and. So this is another William Young, the thistle carver, but his there was no fanciness there.
But the simplicity, look at how this one is though. I mean, instead of the huge
Yeah.
willows, it's a very simplistic stone, but the beauty of it is in its simplicity.
And I don't remember Miles, but that's another James New. Another. I don't know, and I tried so hard to find out who were these carvers of urns and willow, and it came when they were a little bit more automated in the way they were carving their gravestones. So this gravestone is very similar to the one down we have here, Eunice Newton. So it's got the cherub head and winged cherub. These are Tudor roses, which represent the frailty of life, and then just some regular vines or scrolls around. Nothing particularly significant about it, but it's the same face as on that stone back there. Here's another one. This is, we couldn't tell if these are flowers or.
Yeah, we kept looking at them and trying to match them up with some kind of symbolism, because there was a symbolism. I don't know how much of it would have been up here, but they called it a pomegranate,
Yeah.
which is what that reminded me, but it could just be a seed pod or a corn type thing.
Can you just
but
go back for a second?
it's unusual because we don't have too many of them like that. And this one here, this one here, she's going to point out something that this is
This is the
very rare
um,
in our cemetery.
hourglass, turn on its side, which represents your time has run out. And I can't read what's on there, but redeem yourself.
Oh, we did read this
Did we
one.
I can't remember. But anyways, all right. So it's more of,
But are you noticing, are you able to see
you can,
the differences just in the carvers and stuff, but the same symbolizing being put forth? Now see how light that one is. It's very simple, but look how beautiful it is. It doesn't have that heavy ornate look to it. This one's got curly cues in her hair.
this one, the carver of this stone was George Allen. And George Allen also just carved this. We just have one of George Allen. We have two from George Allen Jr., being the Cushing stone and George Allen Jr. only carved 30 stones in his lifetime, which is not very, very few. And George Allen, the Mr. Cushing stone that we have here, was the only probated gravestone to George Allen Jr. These marks are probably from Lawnmower.
Yeah, if you see the lines, it's some kind of damage from somewhere.
So,
Weed whacker.
no, the weed whacker really doesn't do it. The weed whacker can disturb something that's already chipped, but it's the going by. Do you want to do this?
All right, this one here, this was the one that you found. You set it up, right?
We set it up on it.
All right, and what I find that's very interesting about this is that you'll notice that the date is the 1800s, so we've gone into the marble.
Yeah.
But as we entered into the marble and we went into the middle of the 1800s, into the Civil War, the marble stones got more highly decorated. You'll see them like when you go into the cemetery, the first section here is the oldest one, and then you go into what is the marble. I call it the marble section, which is turning you into the 1800s. And they're very rare to have books.
Yeah.
And if you look at that one, it has two open books, which in the case of this particular thing, it would probably be the Bible. But it also indicated someone of intellect, you know. So, and that is that's an unusual symbol, and it does enter. The Victorians, you'll find, like, there's a stone out there in the next section that points like this. It's an oval and it has a finger that points up, pointing to heaven. You won't see that on slate stones.
No.
Heavy wreaths that were done, you know, very heavy detailed flowers and stuff. But that stone is kind of caught in between
So
symbolism time.
what happened, like a stone like this, or there's been a lot of others, when it's tipped like this, it's more in danger of being damaged or falling over or whatever the case may be. So it said that if a stone is upright, standing up nice and straight, it's less likely to be damaged by elements, you know, especially like heaves, frost heaves, or rain. Rain on the slate stone, because slate's all layered, it can get into the stone and during the winter expand and contract, can damage, can make the stone.
Can separate it out like paper leaves. This is, that one's another one with a nice simple willow.
Here's another one. This one still again has floral and the vine and a winged cherub.
He's kind of grumpy looking.
And so this one's got urns and a winged cherub and the gates,
And the umbrella,
the umbrella, and
the canopy.
the entry to the
It's
heaven.
got the works,
or,
It's a busy stone. There's my friend again with his
Yeah.
Celtic look.
Is this the oldest one?
No, 1733 is the oldest one.
A lot
Mary-
of these with the
Mary
Celtic
Temple.
look were the older ones. You know, it's more simplistic.
This is William Taylor. William Taylor's grave. William Taylor donated the land for the burying ground.
Laughing at Elizabeth?
Um,
They're laughing at Elizabeth Taylor.
he donated the land, but he died in 1763, and this is a willow and an urn motif on here. So they either waited another 40 or 30 years before they put a stone up for him, or he had another one and it got damaged and they replaced it with this. This is Mary Temple. This is the oldest gravestone we have, even though they made a mistake when they counted. It says 1753. And she died at the age of 56. But she was born in, I'm not going to remember now, 1692. So it doesn't coincide, the dates. And I double checked and triple checked and went up all over. This is a Boston stone. It's from the Lamson family. They carved their winged death heads with these, I don't know, clenched teeth, I guess you'd call it. But Mary's here, and her husband left after she died, and he's buried in another town. Which happened a lot, really. Someone would die, and they'd be buried here, and the rest of the family someplace else. It's another James New. Okay, so this
The
is
stone we're going to be talking about here, that's the headstone. This is the footstone. Footstone was put at the end so you would know a body was there. Many of the footstones in our cemetery have grown legs and wandered off someplace.
well. What we tried to do when we did some restoration, we tried to. They don't want the headstone and footstones to be apart because it's too hard to mow. So we tried
You'll
to.
see them, yeah.
You
A
put
lot
them
of
up against back to back.
Yeah, so if you're out there and you're looking at one of these older stones and you see like a little one stashed up next to it or a couple, that's their footstones.
So the reasoning with the footstone and headstone was the headstone was at the head of the body and the footstone at the foot. And the headstone, the writing on it faces west, and the footstone faces east. So they wouldn't have to walk across the body or the whatever. And so on Judgment Day, what would happen is the body would rise to face east of the rising sun. So I was part of a group in the early 90s. We did a restoration. It was led by Kevin Samara. I was in charge of cataloging all the gravestones. And, there were people from the society and other people that volunteered and helped us work on this project. So one of our things was to go out in the cemetery, because we knew there was a lot, like I said before, a lot of open space. Were there other gravestones that were down and lost, or we probed the ground? And I had my 11-year-old son with me when I was trying to catalog some of those gravestones, and I said to him, here you go take the poker and see if you can, find something. And he poked the ground. I was right nearby, and all you have to do is just, and you can hear it when you hit something like that. And Matt said, "Oh, I think I found something, Mom." Well, him and I went over and pulled off the dirt, and that's what looked up at us was that face.
And we
So-
really want to thank Parks and Rec for letting us the headstone and footstone
Oh,
here
yeah.
on loan. But it's
So,
they're protected here instead of just sitting out in the elements or.
well, it's been buried for 200 years.
So yeah, it's in good shape because
And
it was
it's
protected.
Perfect, especially this is lovely.
Yeah, you can come up and look at them afterwards,
So-
and we use just water on the one out there, so the writing will pop out better.
Yeah, so it was, there were, one little funny little story was that Mr. Faber and his family helped a lot. I'd have questions and I could contact the graveyard studies place and people would come out and help. And so the Graveyard Association would have an annual meeting in the fall, and they'd go visit some other cemeteries. And Mr. Faber had come out to photograph the stone, and so there was quite a to do with amongst the group about finding this probated stone. A professor came up from Rhode Island, Mr. Vincent Ludi, and he was doing a paper about the probated stones and this George Allen McCarver. So Mr. Faber said to me, well, are you going to be around on such and such a Saturday? Could I bring some people to see the stone? And I said, well, yeah, we'll see if we can get it together. And so we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and the next thing I know, I see a Fox bus come. And I thought, oh my God, and there were about 30 people, and they get out of the bus, and they're taking pictures of the gravestone and, questioning me, and where's the boy? And they run around and take pictures and, tell me what a discovery I made, and, give Matt some attaboys. And,
So we're not the only crazy ones,
so
obviously.
it was, and I was kind of shell-shocked. I think it was like and then off they go to the next stop. They all hop back on the bus. So, but if you have any questions, Linda and I certainly can hopefully answer them for you.
Yeah,
And please take a
We've
look.
got a few more. There's a few more things here,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think. Yeah.
Okay. And see,
All right, like I say, these are some of the problems that we're having. You've got one with, you've seen this one here, where this one's the drunk one, this one's the cracked one.
Yeah.
And the problem is if they go sideways, it's not, they're still going to break. But if they go forward, they're going to snap off at the bottom. And and like this stone here on the very end there, on the right, that poor bugger, he's lost half of himself. We've never seen it. We don't know where that is. So, and a lot of these marble obelisks that are out there, they all had big marble urns on them. And almost all the urns are gone. Either they're laying in the ground, if we're that lucky, or they have been taken, or whatever. Because, like we said, the marble does not do well, and we suffer. This is like what the kneeling stone, and these are stones when they're in the ground like this, they just constantly get run over, and you feel bad because this is someone's descendant, somebody's ancestor, and so this is the really important part because we've got so many of these stones, and of course the marble's heavy too, and they're put on their bases with like a metal rod. I don't really know what material they used at the time.
the rods are usually lead.
Yeah, and so what happens is over the time with the rain and the snow and the freezing and whatnot, it falls off the pipes. So there's one, like if you go down this way, there's a big stone. It's about this big, and he's laying over, so you can't see who he is. But his platform is there with the two big rods stuck out. So
Some of the marble stones are literally black, and that's from
or you can't read them at all because
Right.
they've been eaten away.
they're eaten away. But the black is from air pollution and the road. I know that there's some ways to get it off, but they have to use more caustic material to do it.
So yeah, we just feel that it's. Obviously we're two crazy people, so we spend a lot of time out there. But it's the history of the town. It's like I said earlier, it's the people that made your town what it is for you to live in today and have the benefits and different things like that here. And and like we said, it's history, it's living history. And I work with the schools a lot. Like during COVID, the schools couldn't come up here for tours and stuff. So I put a whole package together for one of the teachers at Spring Street. And she took the kids up, and I said to her, try to explain to the kids that it's not scary. It's not a scary place. And I gave her a list of like the symbolism that we were showing. Tell them to look and see if they find this one with a wing, and that one with a wing, and one with an urn, and just so that they are out there and they're understanding that it's the history of the families that built the town, and that it's not a scary place, and hopefully as the kids participate in some of these programs, they'll understand that it's really the history of the founding families and those that continued on. Yes, we are going to have Nancy. I've been working with Nancy and her little clan there. It's in her ballpark. I mean, the ball's in her park right now, but they're going to do a cemetery tour like we used to do. We stopped doing them a while back because it just, we had been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years, and so we stopped doing them. But they're going to do one for their celebration.
Right.
And I think that most of the people they've chosen will be people that almost everybody knows, except for give or take, a couple of them. You did add the missionary.
I changed that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I see
they're all
she's
right
in charge. So
They're all in the old section. They're all pretty close together. It's got Cushing and Sumner and
but they're people that you just looked at their stones.
Right.
People that developed town, people that first preached in town, and are complete connections to what they're promoting for this year. This is just a list of some thanks for people that have been helping out with us and stuff. And if you see your name, thank you. We just, like I say, our main objective for this program is just to excite people about what's out there and realize that, you may walk out, but you say, oh, it's old stones. But now you've all been educated to being able to determine when you turn into the 1800s or what the different stones are, and all the people that spent time sitting there with their little chisels carving things. There's a lot that went into it. And like I say, keep it in mind that it is American folk art. Not just memories, but folk art. It's a form of art.